Joe. Thank you so much for coming in. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
My name is Joe Palumbo. I was born and raised in Concord. And when I was your age, Natalie, I used to be a tour guide in town, in historic homes. Many years I was an educator out in California, around the country. And then I moved back here recently and I started working at the visitor center again, doing walking tours and bus tours and doing work around history in the town.
I know that prior to this you were a history teacher, right? So do you think that this kind of informs the way that you lead tours? And then as a follow-up to that, how is leading tours different from teaching in the classroom?
I definitely think my years in the classroom with different grades and also in teaching adults informs how I deal and work on tours, trying to make sure that things have a story to them, make sure that there's a lot of opportunity for questions and help people think differently about ideas. I think that it's different from the classroom in that people have chosen generally to go on these tours and have signed up for the hour or the 90 minutes, the 2 hours. And then what's wonderful is it's outside. And I just was with a group of teachers and we talked about like how wonderful it is to basically have your classroom be the streets and byways of Concord and get to talk to people and interact with it.
The Concord Visitor Center offers many different kinds of tours. What is your favorite tour to give and why?
Well, I like all the tours, but I think probably my two most favorite right now would be both the telling me more about the indigenous history of Concord and definitely more about the African Americans of Concord. Both because those are histories and stories that often weren't told fully or overlooked in Concord history and in Concord talking about itself. And it's not so important as we try to build a community that's more diverse and more welcoming and includes all people's stories. I think it's most interesting to really delve into those two particular topics for me.
Not the right word. Are you involved in developing new tours? And if so, what is that process like?
Yes, myself and some of the other members of the team were always involved in developing new tours. I think the process is, it could be a brand new subject like, hey, we don't have anything on this topic. For example, we're doing some work around the cemetery tour. We had a cemetery tour. We wanted to tailor it more towards twilight in the fall and involve a broader representation of the stories we tell. So there's an objective. So then you kind of collect information, and then I think you think about the path. What would be a path to take on this tour, and see if you can link stories to the path. Because part of the joy of being on a walking tour is not just someone standing in a random place talking to you. It's you're talking and being interactive, but you're looking at things that you wouldn't get if you were just reading in a book. So making sure, I think the final part of the tour is that the path accurately reflects and enhances the story by the monument you're looking at, the building you're looking at, or the object you're seeing. So then the tour, then it's finished, and then we try it out together, and we see what works. Then we start to deliver it with customers, get feedback, and then we modify and change over the winter for next year to make sure the tour is stronger.
So on the tours, you often discuss Concord literary history, specifically during the 19th century. And out of the 4 authors that we talk about, mostly Alcott, Emerson, Thoreau, and Hawthorne, who is your favorite to talk about?
Well, I think by far Louisa May Alcott is my favorite to talk about because she's in that group, but when you talk about her, you can talk about so many modern themes of empowerment, self-awareness, specifically the power of women to affect and change things. She has such wonderful quotes about the town itself and her unvarnished look at what living in Concord was like for her. So I really like her. I feel she's a very modern character. And I think there's things we can talk about Louisa that aren't Little Women, but bring her into full and more developed modern character.
But like all places, Concord does have some pretty tough history. What approach do you take when you're describing the more difficult parts of Concord's past?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think what's important is to help people understand, talking about difficult history, how important it is, that we often talk about how today we are not responsible for the choices that were made in the past, but we're responsible for knowing about them and talking about them in a full and honest way and seeing if there's anything in what happened in the past that is affecting today, because that's what we're responsible for, how how we live our life and how we make our community welcoming today. I think we try to tell the difficult history with facts as we know them and with documentation without making up untruths or wish to be truths. And I think also just helping people take an honest reflection that no one likes to be, I always say it all the time, no one wants to hang around someone that just talks about how awesome they are all the time, right? If you have a friend or relative, just pretty quickly you're like, oh God, here they come, right? Why should we be a community that only talks about how awesome we are? We should talk about how real we are, how the great things that happen, but also the challenges of the difficult history. That makes us a real and I think an honest community.
But what is your favorite fun fact to tell on tours?
I think my favorite fun fact is a Louise Malcolm quote when she was asked later in life. They asked her why she was never married. And she has this quote that says, "By some queer freak of nature, I often feel like I'm a man trapped in a woman's body. For I have never loved any men, but have loved so many pretty girls." And she laughed. I love that story. I love telling people that.
How would you describe your tour style, and why do you lead tours in this way?
I would describe my tour style as informal, with a great focus on storytelling. Informal because I like being in front of groups and I like interaction. I tell people right at the beginning of the tour, you can interrupt me at any time. Having been a teacher, I'm used to that, and I think that's important. It means people are thinking. And stories is because that is how, like for centuries, right, how humans we communicate to each other through stories, and that's what sticks with people. Names, dates, when you see old history, name, dates, and dead people, that does not stick with people. But a story with some of those dates and facts woven in is what people remember. I want people when they get off the tour to be able to get in a car or get on the train and say to someone, "Yeah, the 3 things I got out of that are," and they should be able to have stuck with them.
So do you have any final thoughts, other projects that you're working on, tips for visitors, etc.?
I think my tips for visitors would be there's a lot to see. Maybe you can't see everything, but focus on the areas you're most interested in and ask really good questions and ask about all the people. I think that I'm working on other projects in town with other folks who are trying to find new ways to cement this broader history so that we start to change the culture of how we talk about history in the town, so we're not just men and muskets all the time. We're about everybody. And I think that that's probably the most fun. And I think if you came back to Concord in 2 years, and 5 years, and 10 years, you'll see us doing a much better job at telling a more full and authentic history of everybody in town.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a nice rest of your day.